All right, it looks like everyone has logged in now, so we will go ahead and get started with our training this afternoon. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Heather McLeod, and I have with me today Sarah Beth Russell, who will be doing the majority of your training today. We are with OmegaFi's professional services team and are glad to be able to have this opportunity to give you some training on OmegaRecruit. Before we dive into the training, I did just want to give you all a little bit of a background on OmegaFi so that you're familiar with us. Of course, OmegaFi hosts OmegaRecruit, and we have actually been around for more than 30 years. We provide technology solutions to help customers with a wide variety of things, such as managing finances, streamlining operations, recruiting new members, as you all are well aware of and familiar with, and even communicating with members. So we work with 57 different national headquarters and local chapters and house corporations, IFCs, and Panhellenic councils, as well as alumni associations across more than 650 campuses. And through all that, we remain the industry leader when it comes to technology in the fraternity and sorority community. We are based out of Columbus, Georgia, and securely process more than $1.1 million per day for our clients. And we've actually processed more than $4 billion since 1992 when we first got started. So we are very deeply committed to serving and promoting and advancing the fraternity and sorority experience. We aim to make raving fans with every individual member or group that we work with by reaching and innovating and acting with agility. And we challenge ourselves to dream big every day and to help you all achieve your dreams too. So to say that we're passionate about what we do is an understatement, and it's this passion that's encouraged our clients to trust us to do the heavy lifting so that you all can focus on your mission and having fun. So with that, again, that's just a little bit of a background on OmegaFi. So we'll go ahead and dive into the training today on OmegaRecruit and the final reminders that we have for you all to ensure that you have a successful recruitment. We have 2 weekends now behind us with serving various customers that we have on various campuses with recruitment. And so through that, we've learned a couple of things that we want to make sure that we share with you all today. So before Sarah Beth dives in really into the training, let's make sure that you are aware of how to ask questions during the training. So you should see in your window there a little question box. So throughout the training, if you have a question, feel free to type it in there and I'll take a look at them and respond to you. If for whatever reason I don't get to your question by the end of the webinar, we'll send you a follow-up email. So either way, you're going to get your questions answered. But let's test that out and make sure it's working okay for you. So if you see that question box, just go ahead and type in your name and your chapter there, and let's make sure that that's working okay and that everybody can hear me. So if you see that question box, yep, okay, those are starting to come in now. All right, so that seems to be working. Thank you all for testing that out. And again, if you have questions, just type them in there and we will get back to you. All right, well, I will turn it over to Sarah Beth.
Hello, everyone. We are going to go over some things today to help you guys have a smooth recruitment. So on our agenda, we have tips for successful recruitment, and then we're going to look at some login plus how to add your users into the system. So, and to make sure that they are good to go for voting. Then we're going to go through the main menu and features, talking about best practices throughout that to kind of help you with any troubleshooting or to hopefully avoid anything that may need to be troubleshooted. And then we're also going to look at voting and reporting, focusing on reports and pulling those and what is going to best benefit you guys. And then we'll go into that Q&A. But like Heather said, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can go ahead and pop those into the question box. Setting yourself up for success, the things that we want to make sure that we're doing is downloading the mobile app and getting your users logged in. So we do say that at least 1 week in advance of recruitment that you have your users able to log in, and definitely having that mobile app downloaded is going to help with the best success during your recruitment rounds, so they can easily vote on their PNMs that they've spoken with, and that's just going to help you guys with ease through that. And then practicing. So we do have the practice files. If you haven't already started recruitment, this is a great way to set yourself up beforehand to make sure you are just familiar with the functionality of OmegaRecruit and the software. And then the last thing to set yourself up for success is knowing your resources. So you can review the webinars. There's multiple articles and in-app help as well that we'll look at where you can look up that information. And then we also just want to emphasize that during this recruitment season, support is available 24/7. So if there's anything that you are not able to find within your in-app resources, make sure you are reaching out and we will be able to help you with anything that may be going on. So looking at logins, when you add your members to OmegaRecruit, this is what they're going to see in their inbox. They're going to get this email for them to set up their account. Now, if they have previously used OmegaRecruit, then when they go to click on this, it will take them to login and they will use whatever login they previously had. At that point, they will be good to go and have access to that. Now, if they've never used OmegaRecruit before, then it's going to prompt them to actually set up that account. So either way, though, this will get them logged in. And then looking at how to add your members, when in your OmegaRecruit, you'll go to the user tab and add users, and this will be the screen that you come to. If you haven't already added your users, we just want to make sure that everybody is in there before voting starts, so you can do that individually, or if you have a much larger chapter, an Excel spreadsheet is probably going to be the best way to do that. You just need the first and last name, as well as their email address, and then once you add them to the system, that email that we just looked at is going to be what they receive, and they'll be able to get logged in. And then we do suggest that you go ahead and have everyone download their mobile app and log in there as well. Today, just to kind of break things down, these are 3 practices that can help your chapter have the most success throughout recruitment this fall. So we are going to go through the menu and look at reviewing your uploads when setting stuff up for recruitment, the reports that you can pull each round, and then also reviewing your national specific settings if you have those. That's going to help you guys best through the recruitment season. Okay, so for when you first log in, you're going to come to the setup screen, and then once you're on the setup screen, before you can start going through the menu options, you're going to go ahead and go through steps 1 and 2. If you want to upload your users first, you don't necessarily have to do the steps in order. And if you haven't started recruitment yet and you want to use the practice files to run through that, you can check out one of our other webinars to get a little more detailed rundown of that. But the practice files are right here on the setup screen. You can download those and start going through these steps. So we already have users added in this particular account, so we'll go ahead and get our PN or our round set up, and then we'll get our PNMs uploaded. So when setting up your rounds, you'll just click the Add Round button. Depending on how many rounds your particular university may have, you'll want to add those. We do recommend, though, setting up all of your rounds at the same time. So we're going to do 4 rounds for this, but you just want to make sure that you can set them all up initially in order to ensure that the system is calculating your scores correctly, especially if you have certain national setups that calculate things differently. You just want to make sure you have all of your rounds set up accordingly before you start. And then another thing to note is if you have rounds that span multiple days, they still can be one round and you can close and reopen them at the beginning and end of each day, just depending on how that is. But just because it spans over multiple days doesn't mean you need to set up multiple rounds. You can divide that up into parties, which we'll look at in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and rename these just to help us identify them when we're looking at that. And you can do that with the pencil icon here. You don't have to rename them, but sometimes it just helps when looking at that. And then also when setting up your rounds, again, if you have national specific rounds, you might want to look at that as well to make sure that you have everything set up. Some people have different ones that you need to make sure you're checking off and that sort of thing. If you do, you'll know exactly what that is when you're looking at this page. And then we're just going to call this last one pref here. And then when setting up your rounds, you can choose between party voting and open voting. So per the practice files that we'll be using today, we'll have 12 parties for open house and 9 for sisterhood. And the difference between party voting and open voting is simply that party voting divides that up to the parties that members are visiting in. So that way, when you are voting, members will only see the girls who are in each party as you advance your rounds party by party, whereas open voting, it's going to show all the P&Ms in one list. That can be really difficult to sort through, especially if you're a bigger school. So party voting just kind of helps narrow that down, especially if you have people with multiple people with the same name, that sort of thing. That just kind of helps clarify which one came at which time and makes it a little easier to go through. So once you have that set up, you'll want to hit save. Your rounds aren't actually set up until you finalize and hit save, so make sure you hit that button. And then afterwards, you can go ahead and upload your P&Ms, which you'll go to P&M and the P&M list. It'll take you back to your setup page. And now that we've done step 1, it's disappeared. So you can click on step 2, or you can also go to the upload P&M page. Either one is going to take you there. And here is where we are going to upload those P&Ms. Now, one thing to note for this is when you are uploading your P&Ms, you want to make sure that you are following the specific detailed instructions and examples here. So looking at that, it's going to tell you everything you need. Again, if you have any national specifics, there may be a difference in these columns here. So I would suggest looking specifically at the columns that are listed and making sure that your Excel file has this. Now, anyone who has Campus Director, or any other software besides ICS, you'll have to upload this file. If you have ICS, this screen is going to look a little different. You'll be able to import that information from ICS, but any other campuses using another software is not going to be connected. So you'll have to download the Excel file from whatever software your Greek Life uses and upload it here. So that's when a lot of times we see the most common mistakes made is just in updating that file. So a lot of those files don't come exactly as formatted here. So just make sure you're reviewing that, make sure it says what it needs to. For example, a lot of times we'll see class or year. If you have first year instead of freshman, that may, depending on what your national setup, affect things. So just make sure you're using the right verbiage when doing that, including any of the information you have, especially GPA, if that's something that is calculated into you guys' score. If not, then not that big a deal, but just something to be aware of depending on your chapter. And then another thing is make sure you have those MINs. If your campus doesn't specifically use MINs, you'll want to just assign those to the members. That way they're numbered off. That is how the system recognizes the members. And you'll see that again when we look at the P&M, the party upload screen, because you'll upload those parties by the members MIN rather than their name. So that's how the system identifies that. And then also when uploading your members, if you need to add new ones, you can add them to that same file. You don't have to fully update the file or just make a new one with those members. You can just upload with the new members in that same file with everyone else. And that MIN is basically, it's just the member identification number. And it's going to be what the system uses to not duplicate it. So you can always re-upload with your other members added without having to delete everyone else. And then that way it will just add the new members that may have joined recruitment late rather than duplicating anybody. So that MIN is important to have, mainly just for system identification. Okay, and then once you have made sure all your columns are good to go, everything looks correct, you'll just want to make sure you save it as Excel 97 2003 workbook or XLS file formatting. This is how you'll want to save that to make sure that the file uploads correctly. And then additionally, I do want to mention for most chapters, you're going to be able to add custom columns if you need to. So if there's anything that is not within this column list that you would like for information, you can add that in your custom 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, and we'll look at where you can change the names of those after you upload them. Went ahead and uploaded this file. As you can see from the green box here, that is good to go and uploaded. And it does show that we have some missing columns, but it looks like those are unrequired. So it will tell you anything that you're missing. Same with like if a GPA is missing, it'll let you know and on what line, or if it doesn't successfully upload, it'll tell you down here what's missing so you can easily find that in the Excel file to get that updated. And then going back to the P&M list now, we can see all the P&Ms are uploaded from that, and step 2 has disappeared. Now, if you're going through practice recruitment, you'll continue going through the steps. We're going to go ahead and just look through the menu options, and we will hit all those steps within the menu. But we will do that just so we can make sure we focus on best practices today. So starting off with the P&M drop-down tab, we are on the P&M list currently. So there's a lot of different things here. This is going to be kind of your main hub of information when it comes to your new members. So when looking at this, this is going to be where you see all your voting activity, any information that you uploaded in that P&M file is going to be on this page. If you want to organize this information accordingly, we have this little hamburger icon up here. That's what we call it, but it's just a little menu icon. You can click on that. There's a few different options here. If voting is open and active and you're wanting to refresh your feed, you can refresh and recalculate so you have the most up-to-date information as you're going through that. That is just a good way to make sure you're seeing everything in real time. And then we also have here, this is a really good way to organize your information. So if there's anything that maybe you're not wanting to see in the columns, like let's say you don't need the MIN, you don't want that showing, but you want their preferred name, and if you have any custom columns, you want their major in there, whatever that may be. And then you always want to make sure that out of everything here that you have all your rounds selected. That way you'll see the scores as well as the overall score. And if you're using the matching starred option, then you'll want to make sure to have that starred column selected as well. So once you update that, you'll see the columns adjust accordingly, and you can now look at that in whatever formatting you want. If you want to pull something over, you can select that and pull it down, rearrange the columns, and then additionally, you can also click in some of these. So for admin notes, we can put a note that they graduated early from high school. You can type that into the new member's information. Now, if you do refresh the page, any columns that you've moved out of order will go back to their original place. So just keep that in mind. None of the columns you selected, though, that won't reset. It's just where they are in sequence. But as you can see, graduated early from high school. That information is in the admin notes. And another one that you can double click into is the picture here. So if you want to upload a picture, you just use that picture URL. Make sure when using that, though, you are getting the image address, not the URL of the page that the picture is located, and that will get that picture put in for the PNM. Like I mentioned before, the starred feature, this column here, when you're using matching, we'll touch a little more on that in a second. But if you are using that, you can star PNMs to talk to members by double clicking on that star, and that will put them in the matching to be able to be matched with members to speak with. So you can see that, and then here if we scroll down, you can see where those round votes will come in. So for instance, if we wanted to take out interest, hometown, and major, we can just see those pulled in a little closer. You can also sort this list. So if we only wanted to see freshmen within that, you can type in freshmen, and it's going to pull all the members who are who have freshmen within their profile. Now, the thing you'll want to be careful with here is if it says anywhere in their interest or admin notes freshman, it will pull that into here. So even if they're not a freshman, but maybe it says participated in freshman cross country, something like that in their notes, it's still going to pull them in there. So if you want a more refined search, you can click on this little icon here and look at some advanced search options to narrow that down. But that is one really good way to filter out the list. And then if you want to sort it, you can sort that here. Or let's say if you want to click on a column, it will sort that accordingly. And then like you can sort it by parties. Right now we don't have the parties uploaded. We'll look at that in a minute. But normally when you click on that, it'll sort that by what party the girl is coming to your chapter. And one more thing of note here, or two more things actually. You can look at this slideshow here to review the PNMs that are coming to you. If you click on that, you can go through them. Now, if you have any sorting features on there, so like if you have freshmen selected in that sorting up at the top, then it's only going to pull freshmen into that slideshow. So just be aware, anything of that sort will limit who's in the slideshow. But you can tab through that with your arrow keys, and this also has where you can select the different information you want to pull into this. You can also print that by hitting the P key on your keyboard. It's going to turn the screen blue, and then you can right click and print it. Just make sure that if you're doing that, review your scaling first, because sometimes it doesn't all fit on that page. So just make sure everything is scaled appropriately, and then print that, and you can have a printout of those PNMs. And then when you want to get out of that, you just hit the escape key. That is something that is good to print out at the end of the night if you need it. And then another thing that we suggest doing is exporting your PNM list at the end of each night. This is just kind of an in case. It's really good information to pull to break it down, especially if you want to distribute it within your chapter to look at that. But it's also good information to pull regardless to make sure you have anything you need in case something does happen. So it's just good to have that on hand. So you can pull this and save it. This is going to show you basically the breakdown of everything that's in the PNM list, as well as any of your scoring that they receive. So it'll show you all the PNM's scores. Right now we see this -1. That's because no votes are input. Once votes go in, it will show the score that they have for each round. And you'll actually see that broken down on this. And we'll look at other reports that are really good to pull at the end of the night as well, that give a little further breakdown, but this is a really great general report to pull with all the P&M information. Okay, and then going to the next item on the list, if you want to individually add a P&M, so this is another option instead of doing the mass upload. If you have a few P&Ms who registered late and you need to add them in, you can do that here. If you don't want to mass upload them, all you need is the MIN and then their first and last name, and that will get them into the system. And then any other information you may need, we do suggest putting that, especially if, like I said, GPA is used in your calculations or whatever it may be, depending on your nationals. So just make sure you are filling that out to the best of your ability. And once you're done, you'll hit the submit at the bottom. And then looking at the upload P&Ms again, this is where you would do that in mass. So if you had 10 extra members and you didn't want to upload them all individually, again, you can re-upload the file you originally did, and that MIN is going to prevent any duplicates, but it'll still add those new members that are now in the file. And just make sure that when you're doing that, you are adding all the members and that everyone is present in the file, because sometimes if someone is no longer listed in the file, that can cause issues. So just make sure you're looking to make sure that everything looks good to go. And then next under that dropdown is your upload parties. So this is another screen that can look different if you are an ICS school. If you are ICS, again, you will have a button that says import from ICS. And then something to note on that, which I didn't mention earlier, but if you are ICS and you haven't started recruitment and you want to do practice run through, you can. We'll look at how you can connect and disconnect from ICS on the chapter page later. So if you want to disconnect and run through with the practice files, you can, but during recruitment, you will be connected to ICS and this screen will look a little different. Now, if you use a different recruitment software, again, you'll have to download the Excel file from whatever that is, Campus Director or another recruitment application. And when you download that, you'll just have to format it accordingly. Now, this one is a lot less detailed. So you're going to see here that all you'll need is the MIN and the party number. So if you are doing party voting and members are coming to you in different parties, this is how you'll set that up. And then just make sure, especially for round one, that every member who is coming to you in a party has a party number assigned to them. If they do not, it is going to mark that P&M inactive or in a status of regret. So just make sure that they all have a party assigned to them if they are coming back to you. Now, if they are not returning, then they obviously won't have a party number assigned. But like I said, especially in your first round, if they have parties, then everyone should be assigned a party. And again, that file upload is just going to need to be saved as the Excel 97 2003 workbook. And so we're going to go ahead and upload for our open house round. So this is why I like to rename them. It just kind of helps me sort through them. Even if it says round one, round two, I just like this better, and that can help you sometimes. But again, you can leave those, but we know this is for open house, and we'll submit those parties. And then if you want to change it, and like for sisterhood, we have 9 parties for that, we can also choose the party files for that. Another kind of common question we get in terms of party uploads is if member or P&M's parties changes. So we know recruitment can be pretty hectic and sometimes clashing schedules. P&M's will get moved around in their parties. If that happens, you can always re-upload that file with the corrections and it will override whatever their previous party was. So, if Susie moves from party 3 to party 5 and you're in party 2, you can still upload that and it's not going to affect any of the voting or anything. It will just change any parties accordingly. And then that way, when you get to your voting, that P&M will now be in the correct party to vote on. Now we're going to look at matching. So this is what I was talking about earlier when using the star. There's a few different ways that you can do matching. This is something that is not a primary function of OmegaRecruit, but it can be really helpful to sort through data and better match P&Ms to members to speak with. So this is a really good tool to help if you are wanting to better organize the matching system to figure out who's going to talk to who. So there's 4 different criteria that you can use to generate your potential matches. You can do that based on recommendations. You can do that on the starred members and P&Ms. You can do that on interest and hometowns. Now, if you're using interest and hometowns, once your users are added and logged in, make sure they're going to their user profile and filling out information for their interests and hometowns if you're going to use these options. That way they're able to get matched. For the other 2, they don't have to do anything to update their profile, but that will be based on recommendations are if another member recommends them in the voting. So there will be on the ballot a box where you can recommend that a P&M speaks with a specific user. So you can do that. And then with the starred, that is again, you can star them on the P&M list, and then you can star users on your user list, which we'll look at as well. And then required just means that they have to have that particular criteria in order for them to be matched. So even if they have the same interest and hometowns, if you have to have a recommendation and they don't have a recommendation, then they would not generate as a potential match. And then down here on this, you can change the max number of matches per member and per P&M. Sometimes that can just help minimize the data. But if you need more matches, maybe with a bigger chapter, more matches sometimes can be helpful in that organization process. But we do recommend anywhere between like 2 to 5, but some chapters need more. That does go up to 500. And then you can also choose what round you're doing your matches for. And then once you have done all that, you can generate the matches, and it's going to pull in your users and the P&Ms that they match with. This is another thing that can be really useful to pull in an Excel or a PDF to better organize them into groups of who's going to talk to who, just so you have that information. So we do suggest pulling that. Before you pull it though, if you want to add or delete any matches, you should do that first. So you can delete matches by clicking on the checkbox over here and deleting the selected, or you can add a new match if one is not listed that you would like by clicking add a match and then selecting the member you want and the P&M you'd like them to talk to, and then saving that match. And then after you have made all those adjustments, that's when you would want to pull that data. Moving from the matching, here we have comments reporting. If you have comments are a big part of what you look at the end of each night, you can actually download any comments that were submitted on the ballot. So when your members go to vote, they'll have a section where they can add comments, and this is what that is going to download for you. So it'll just organize that. There are other ways you can look at that as well. So if we go to the reports in general, we can see comments is also under that as well. And you can organize that, make that a little more specified if you want for specific rounds, and then choose how it's sorted by. One thing to mention, this Rex here, this reporting is going to be if you use that for alum. So if alums submit recommendations here, you can share that link with them, and then you can export those recommendations. If you don't use that, then this may not be necessarily relevant, but that is what these particular recommendation reporting is. And then going to reports in general, look at, we have your P&M report, so you can look at your active P&Ms and including the comments. So another place that You can have those comments downloaded if you want it with more information than just the comments. This here also helps limit, so if you're further in the recruitment process and you don't want to see all the P&Ms that have come to you guys, only the ones that are still active in the recruitment process for your chapter, you can narrow down that and download that into an Excel. You can also download your voting activity. We suggest doing this, like I said, just in case anything ever happens, just so you have that information. So this is going to be good breakdown, unlike the one on the P&M list of what all members have voted what. So it'll give you a further breakdown of who voted and what the scoring was. And you can do that for each round individually and sort it by user or P&M. We already looked at the comments. And then here is just another slideshow. If you want to download that, that will go into a PowerPoint format. So if you prefer the PowerPoint format, you can download that here. It is going to show a little less information than the in-browser slideshow that was on the P&M list menu, but it will still be kind of similar to that. Here you can look at voter distribution. This is just going to be additional information, data that you may want to go through that just will help you kind of see the trends of voting. And then you can also look at your vote audit report now. So this is a newer feature, but this is really helpful in knowing what votes may have been changed. So if at any point a member submits a vote that was incorrect and they need to have that updated, you can update the vote, and this is where you'd be able to see the changes made, what the original score was, what it was changed to, who made that change. So that is just really good for keeping the integrity of the voting process and making sure you have all that data from what it was and what it is now. And we've already looked at the users, but we'll go ahead and look at the user list under that. So we looked at how to add users. This here is going to be your user list specifically. This is where you can star your users. So if you have some people that you know are really strong recruiters and you want to star them for the matching process, this can be where you do that. This can also be where you mark people as admins or delete them or restrict a member. Any members who have not logged in yet, you can resend them the registration email from this page as well. And another good reporting tool that you can look at here is you can click on the member themselves and look at any votes that they've submitted, any comments specifically that they've made, their profile, and you can add a vote for the member here. This particular profile doesn't show this because it's a super user, but on yours you'll see where you can add a vote. Now, when you're adding that vote though, just make sure you are in the correct round that you're wanting to add the vote for. So if you are looking to add the vote for round 1, make sure that on your chapter page you are in round 1. That's the round that is open for voting. And then also your members will have individual voter distribution that you can look at as well. Another data point place that you can look at is the hub. This is just going to show more data that you can use. You can flip the charts to see where it's pulling those data points, and you can also download those. Sorry, if I flip back, you can download those right here. This is just going to give you even further breakdown of what those members look like, any that are active, any that are inactive, release, no-show. It's going to give you, depending on what you're looking at, you can also see the GPA scales. So this is just good information to have if you want to download that. This is where your members will click to vote. Again, this particular account doesn't, but your members, and if you're an admin, you are still able to vote as well. So we'll look at, let's go ahead and open a round of recruitment, and then I can show you here on this user. If I click on vote, it'll take me to that ballot. So it'll show you that there. And then under the chapter tab, this is what I did here. Under your advanced rounds and parties, this is where you will do that. So you'll first be on before recruitment, and then as you go through, you will advance your rounds. Now, what I was talking about earlier when setting up the rounds, if you have a round that spans over multiple days, you can close that at the end of the night to close voting, so voting doesn't go on throughout the night. So you can close that for the party. So if you only get through party 5 and you need to close it, you can change that status accordingly. And then the next day, when you're ready to move on to party 6, you can go ahead and reopen that voting back up. Whatever that looks like for your chapter, but this is a good way to just limit when votes are being put in. So if you have like a time limit that you're allowing girls to put that in, you can always go back if you need. And this is also when you go to add votes, this is where you need to make sure that you're in the correct round to add votes. So we'll save that for when we go to look at voting. This is what we looked at earlier when we added your round. So if you need to edit anything here, you can. Here is where when you first log in as an admin, you will set up your information and your recruitment dates. Here's where you can edit those custom columns that are on the P&M upload list. So if you have custom columns, this is where you'd be able to rename them. This is where you can connect and disconnect from ICS. So like I said earlier, if your chapter uses ICS, but you want to disconnect in order to use the practice files for practice, you can do that here. And then this is where you'll also reconnect to ICS for recruitment once actual recruitment is in swing. And then this here is where you can do your master reset. So something to note on the master reset, this is going to wipe all your information. So all your P&Ms are taken out, all your votes, your comments, everything, and your system is going to be set back to before recruitment. Now your users will still be in there, but everything else will be gone. That being said, be very careful when using your master reset. You'll only want to do this after you have finished your practice rounds and you are ready to start recruitment. So you can master reset as many times as you want to go through practice. But once you start recruitment, you really don't want to do the master reset at any point during that, like at all, until you're done. So once you're finished with recruitment, like before you start spring, you'll probably do your master reset, but during the once recruitment starts, you just want to be very careful about needing to do this. Typically, you're not going to run into the situation where you have to do a full master reset. You know, maybe if information was put in incorrectly and you do need to start over, you can, but it's going to make it very difficult, especially the further you are in recruitment. So we just have you use this with caution, and we do, when you're doing this, it will come up and ask you, tell you what chapter, and just kind of give you that warning to make sure that you are wanting to do the master reset. Okay, and then the next thing on the menu is your configuration. So for most chapters, when you look at this, you'll see just kind of the basics. This is what your basic ballot and round scores. Now, if you have specifics for your national organization, you'll have your national organization's Greek letters here. You'll see that instead of the word configuration, and it will denote everything that is specific to your national organization. So make sure you are reviewing that. If you do have specifics, that can be something that affects your setup and various different things within the system. So just review that carefully, and if you do have questions, you can reach out or review some of the material we have to see what may need to be done. But this is where you'll see how that is done and then how your scoring is calculated. And then with any questions that you may have, we have several different resources within OmegaRecruit. So you can go to the training tab here. This is going to show you step-by-step with screenshots how to go through and do your setup for practice recruitment or recruitment in general. So this is your setup, and you can go through and see step-by-step how to get that done. Then under the Help Me tab here, you have where you can search for different FAQs. So if there's something specific, you can either look on this side or you can search and see if you can find an article. So this is a really good hub of information there. And then if there is something that you can't find on either of those, you can click Get Help and search here as well. So we have a bunch of knowledge-based articles that are within this system that you can search for. And if you're still not finding information, or there's something specific that may be having an error, whatever that may be, you can also reach out to our support team, which again, during recruitment season, we do have that 24 hours to be able to assist you, and you can pick what is going on specifically and fill out that information, and also put a priority with that, and they'll be reviewed and dealt with based on priority. Make sure when you're submitting this, though, include as much information as possible. The more information that you include for us, the better we're going to be able to assist you. So making sure any examples, any screenshots, whatever may be going on, that's going to be the best way to get that solved and get it solved quickly. Okay, and then just to take a look at voting when doing that, this is a user account that is also an admin account. So here you do see where you can see all the things over here. This is what an admin would see, but then admins can also vote. So this is a screen that your users will see primarily, is the voting screen, and then they'll also have like their user profile. From here, they can submit votes. You can look at the different options here. If you select a P&M, you can then look at the little light bulb icon, and it will tell you more information on them, and then you can submit your vote. Here is the comment section where you can put a comment that will then generate for those reports and will be able to be seen by the admin. And here's where you can recommend a match as well. So if you want to recommend them to talk to someone, and then you can submit that. So as you vote on your different P&Ms, they will disappear from that list. So as you can see, the party list is getting smaller and smaller as you continue to vote on those. So you can submit those, and then when we go back to the P&M list here, we can see that those P&Ms now have scores pulling in under the round and then into their overall. So you'll see this here, as well as you can see up here your voting activity, how many users, how many active P&Ms, and then how many total votes you have in. So that kind of goes over everything today, some of the best practices. Again, make sure that when you're looking at those, you are just reviewing any specific configurations that you may have, and reviewing your uploads when looking at that, pulling your reports to make sure you have that information on hand. Those are going to be the best things to kind of help you out. And we'll now open up for Q&A to see if there are any questions. Heather, I know you've been answering some. Have there been any questions that we can go over?
Yes. So one question I got from Maggie that we need to just clarify. She asked if everyone needs to be assigned a party number. Do you mind touching on that again?
Yeah, of course. So yes and no. So I kind of touched a little on this earlier. If you are in your very first round and all the P&Ms are going to be visiting you in some party, then yes, everyone would need to have a party number. Otherwise, they will be marked as inactive. Now, as you go through the recruitment process and P&Ms may not be invited back to your chapter, not everyone will necessarily have a party number if they are not returning. But anyone who is returning to your chapter in a party will need to have a party number that they're visiting in if you're using party voting. Now, if you're using open voting, they don't have to have that assigned. So that's kind of the long short of that.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for answering that. On that same topic, we just got a message in here from Emily. With party voting, since we're on that topic, with party voting, can a P&M be scored by two different sisters?
Yes, and in the depending on your national configuration, so if you don't have anything nationally specific, then yes. I only say that because I do know there are a few nationals that only one sister can vote on a P&M during a round. That being said, though, that is not common. So typically, yes, you will be able to have multiple sisters vote on a singular P&M throughout the round, and um, it will calculate typically, like if you're using the regular configuration, it will average out those scores for the round based on the scores that each sister assigns. So yes, you can definitely have multiple sisters vote on a P&M.
Okay, thank you. And then Allison asked if there is an app for Android phones. And right now, OmegaRecruit is only available in the App Store for Apple phones. And then one other question that I believe that you already answered this, Sarah Beth, but it's worth revisiting again because we always get several questions. And that is, what is a MIN? A member identification number. Do you mind just touching on that again and explaining what the purpose of that is? I know that can be confusing for a lot of folks.
Yeah, so your MIN is your member identification number is what it stands for. That typically is going to be assigned by whatever recruitment software that your campus uses. So when you download the Excel file, normally that'll have that in there. Now, if it doesn't, it is required in the system for OmegaRecruit for the upload. So you can just number them like 1 through however many P&Ms you have. The only reason that it does that is so that it can stop duplications when uploading new members and when you assign them parties. So it is just basically the number that is connected to that member that is individual to them. Because, people can have the same name, that sort of thing. So it helps identify that particular member. So when you upload them for parties, that MIN is used as their identification. So it is important to have. Typically, it's assigned, and if not, like I said, you can assign them just 1 through whatever number of P&Ms you have, but that number will be specific to that P&M once it's assigned to them.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I know that can get confusing. We tend to get questions on that pretty often. All right, well, I think that is all of the questions that have come in. Thank you all so much for attending today and for sending in those questions. The recording of today's webinar will go out to everyone who registered for the webinar. So even if maybe somebody else in your chapter registered but wasn't able to attend the live webinar, they will still get the recording, as will everybody, of course, that attended. So feel free to send that out whenever you receive it if you want to share it with other leadership within your chapter. And then, of course, you can see here on the screen our email address. If you need anything during recruitment or before or after, feel free to reach out and let us know if you're unable to find the answers that you need in our help center. We will be glad to help you out. Just let us know, and best wishes and good luck on recruitment. I hope you all have a great afternoon. Thanks for attending.